Hello and welcome to the after party. Jared, George, and I are your hosts. Appearing on the honors roll call today are Matthew, Charlie, Happy Cat, Going Free, great name, JP, Last Paleocon, Shaxor, and Michigan Wave. I deeply appreciate your support and sense of moral responsibility. As for the Super Chat, crown winner of last week, the crown goes to Snow Duchess for investing a total of 25. Keep the lights on for White Wellbeing dollars. Accolades and congratulations. Thank you so much, my dear lady. In second place was, believe it or not, Ryan Manley, investing $14.99. Congratulations and thank you, good sir. Super Chat on YouTube at 33%, on Entropy at 15%, where you can also watch the stream, ask and vote on questions and participate in any polls I post. On Ko-fi at 15%, Cash App at 6%, or dig down into the video's description for the familiar alternative at 6%. Jared and I evenly share the Super Chats with our guests here on the after party. Today, we're getting tapped into Henrik and Lana from Red Ice fame. We're going to be talking about their history and personal stories. We only have them for the first hour, so the tap is going to be wide open, and we are going to get right into it. I pass it to you, Jared.
Yes, welcome to the Behind the Music of Red Ice. It might not be quite as dramatic as an episode of Behind the Music about famous bands and musical artists, but we figured you know the story about how Red Ice was unfortunately deleted off of YouTube back in October, and we all spoke since then, and we're so happy to see the support that they've gotten, and we wanted to lend that support too. But we always like to do things a little differently here, and we figured something we wanted to do for a long time anyway with Red Ice is get a little more into Henrik and Lana's story, as Jason just said. So since we have a lot to cover, we want to get right into it. We'll just hit the ground running. So Henrik, Lana, welcome. Technically, you were on our Halloween show, but this is the first time that we really have a tap dedicated to you two, and we're honored and very happy that you are here. So why don't we get right into it? And Henrik, we'd like to hear just a little bit about your beginnings, about how Red Ice initially launched and what your initial visions and goals were for it.
Red Ice was kind of formulated in a very kind of strange way, not the way people think, back in 2003. And I was doing a lot of kind of artsy things, digital art, music, and all kinds of things. Was with a friend at the time. We set up a website, or I set it up, but I kind of dragged him into that. And then after maybe like 6 months of doing some of that, keeping some, making some digital art and stuff online, and I started reading a lot about 9/11, a lot about kind of deeper geopolitical things, and started to really kind of change my mind. This is a couple of years after 9/11, of course, but I started to come across a lot of the material about that event and stuff. So, of course, I was kind of in a conspiracy field, more so at that time. And eventually I just started posting articles on that website that we had. It was under a different domain name at that point. It was red-ice.net, I believe. And then I guess that started getting so much traction just in itself. I didn't really promote it anywhere, but visitors started coming, and don't even ask me how, but people found it. And so in 2006, I got offered doing a radio segment on another guy's radio show that I did at that he was doing at that time, and the people who owned the station ended up offering me a whole show instead of just doing a short segment on his thing. And this is pre like YouTube, it's pre Skype. I forget when Skype came out, but so they were.
Was it internet radio?
Yeah, it was internet radio, and it was but it was old school. They actually called you on the phone. So they called up a guest that you wanted to have on, and then they called you, and they
This was 2007 or 2006.
2006, yeah. April
That's
2006.
cool.
Yeah.
So it was very old school. And what happened is that, me and my brother had been playing music and stuff, so we knew audio engineering, and we had our own mixer and stuff like that.
What you play an instrument?
I played drums primarily initially, but I ended up playing guitar and bass and singing, and I wrote my own stuff for a while as well. So I could
what kind of stuff?
We came from grunge rock music area, but I did some alternative and digital
90s, baby.
Some of that stuff. So yeah, good old days. So so we were into music. So we had equipment, we had gear, we had mics, we had all that kind of stuff, and we realized hey, we can do this ourselves. Why do we let these guys call us up and do it? We jerry-rigged an old speaker phone that we literally mic'd. This is like the first maybe 20 shows we did it this way.
Wow.
I love stuff like this.
And it was because we looked at I think they're called telephone hybrids. And those are the ones that you can use to kind of call and patch in through like an audio mixer, a phone line essentially. And they were like, I think there's some that ranges from like $1,000 to $5,000, and it was just not the money we had at all at that time.
Wow.
Expensive gear and stuff. So we just like jerry rigged it. We built our own little box with a speaker phone in it, and literally mic'd that thing and did it that way.
That is awesome.
So do what you can, right? So and then eventually, I forget, Skype showed up at some point. It was easier to do calls online and stuff, and so but that's kind of the backstory. That's how we started.
And Lana, so you have a bit of a creative background as well, and I know that you were helping with production. So how were you introduced to it? I know Henrik eventually convinced you to do your own show, Radio 314, but what were your early beginnings with it?
Well, let me. I have to interrupt Lana really quick so I can just say to all the ladies out there, look at how wonderful this lady looks right here. This is what serving White Wellbeing does for a woman. If Lana had gone down a completely different road, look, and Henrik is in full agreement. Thank you very much, good sir. If Lana had gone down an anti-white road, ladies and gentlemen, she would not look like this today.
Shaved head and pink hair.
Yeah, shaved head.
I did have magenta hair when I was younger, but I wore it with style. Okay, I didn't look like these cat ladies.
Okay, I just had to say that. Check out our beautiful gray ladies out there. If you want to be healthy, if you want to glow like this, if you want to be beautiful, you serve the spirit that is inside of you. That's how we.
That is true.
Yes.
That is absolutely true.
Said with respect.
I actually have a background in music and film production. I worked in LA for many years, actually as producer's assistants and project management and actually music licensing. So I've been in the scene. Then my brother and I started our own record label. I was a recording artist. I actually have some songs that are still floating around that I get royalties for that people don't know about. I should probably pull out some clips from these old TV shows so people can hear it, because lefties would have a lot of fun with that, I think.
Yeah,
but when I remember listening to Henrik, it was in 2007 when I found Red Ice. I found InfoWars. I found Red Ice. I used to listen to Coast AM ever since I was young, probably like 15. My parents had it playing. And I remember listening to Red Ice thinking at the time, because there was all these guys that wanted to get married and I just never found the right guy, and I heard him and I was like, man, I need to find a guy like that.
Oh, wow.
When I heard his voice, there's something about him. And I was like, he's in Sweden. How is that ever going to work? So, just get that out of your head. Doesn't matter how far away they are, because you can always take an airplane, go to Europe. Anyway, but when you brought me to, when I came over, Henrik, it was probably, we've been together 10 years, and I just kind of helped him out right away, just writing texts. And then we started Red Ice TV pretty early. Remember, we were out interviewing some people in the streets and doing.
How did you just go over? Did you respond? Was there like a help wanted ad for Red Ice?
I actually was working on a music project with my brother at the time, who lives in Fiji, and he has a recording studio that's off the grid on my parents' property. And I was working on a project for 30-day notice. My brother did all the music. He's a recording engineer and producer and stuff. And I was singing and doing the lyrics. And we both were listening to Red Ice together at nights on the islands there in Fiji. It was pretty magical for a time. And I contacted Henrik and I said, hey, do you want to work on a music project with us? Now, this was on MySpace, mind you. MySpace.
Wow. Good old days of MySpace. That's right. Yeah.
Back in the day.
2008.
And then we just hit it off and started talking quite a bit. And then he invited me up there, and then I just stayed.
Just coming up.
And I just stayed. And so we didn't have like you picking me up and going out for dates and all that stuff. It was like, hi, how are you? And then basically we just moved in together right away, because there wasn't another option when you meet someone who lives in another country. And so what better way than to just get right into it? And we were in a tiny, remember, Henrik, studio bedroom apartment, and all his friends were like, sorry, go on.
It was personal and professional right away.
Pretty much, yeah. We just got into it right away, and I was happy to help out. I remember, Henrik, all your friends saying, "How do you guys do it? Like, how do you not kill each other? You're around each other all the time." And I was like, "Well, when it works, it works.
When it works, it's not a problem."
Yeah,
that's magic.
Destiny. Yeah,
I love it.
That's what God's wanted. So, Lana, I know when you were in the U.S., I've heard you talk about this on other shows. I know that you went to school in Portland. And first of all, very similar trajectory. I relate a lot to about what you're talking about, the creative background, starting with more of a search for truth. Maybe I wasn't quite as into the conspiratorial stuff, a little bit of that, but definitely the spirituality and the esoteric stuff. And also, Lana, something that I heard you say, we spoke a little bit about this with Survive the Jive when he was on too, and he was speaking about his own creative background and trying to break into journalistic pursuits in London some years ago before we all knew him as Survive the Jive, which is just, you could kind of smell something off these anti-white liberals, even if you weren't quite as political or awake then. So I'm curious as to what you think about that in terms of just like what the ramifications of that say about following your gut, the kind of family you come from, and the evolutionary bottleneck that we're at right now as well. How some of us have this sense of our folk, and some of us, it's just absolutely dead to us. And there's this fork in the road, and you can tell. I had the same experience. I could tell these people were different from me even before I had the worldview worked out or the vocabulary for it.
Well, I didn't always have folk in mind, and I think Henrik also, I always knew I was Russian, though, because I grew up in a very Russian family, both sides, and they always talked about our heritage and communism and fleeing, so that really stuck with me, and being around Russian language and all of that. So I always knew I was Russian, but this whole other awakening didn't even happen till later of I'm European, and there's basically a war going on against us, loyalty, folk, tribe, pre-Christian traditions. I didn't know about any of that stuff until probably around 2014. And I think, Henrik, you didn't realize this stuff till kind of later on in the game too. I mean, as far as your whole Viking heritage and really embracing all of that too, because you grew up in such a, lefty anti-Swedish system in Sweden at the time too.
Yeah, more of the system, but it's still interesting though, because there's something didn't kind of get me to cross that line, I guess, or whatever, because the topics we covered from 2006 to, I'd say 2013, maybe something like that, it was all over the place. It was like obviously truth-seeking journey and all that stuff. But yeah, a lot of conspiracy, geopolitics, esoteric stuff, occult things, off the wall, kind of more interesting things, deeper questions, philosophical stuff. But weaved into that was regularly we came across things of like, the globalization process, these elites, what are they doing? I mean, in 2010, I came across that clip with Barbara Specter, who's of course was working in Sweden at the time, to essentially out in the open replace the Swedish people and the European people.
Yep.
And I think it was 2010, maybe even 2011, a year later, I came across that clip and I started getting really interested in like, wait a minute, why are they so adamant about like making sure that Swedes become a minority? And that something clicked in me at that point, and I'm just like, well, this is horribly wrong, and I didn't know. It's like when you begin to appreciate it in a different way when you realize that it's under pressure or threat from an outside force that essentially sees you as an enemy, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. And so I woke up to like a lot of those things, and it was a combination of reading and learning about like what the elites, the establishment was doing, why this globalization was going on, in conjunction with me kind of going around to a lot of old ancient sites, because I was very interested in the history at that time, not only Viking, but pre-Viking, the Goths, a lot of the Neolithic settlements and things like old rock carvings. We're out on location, visiting a lot of these things. And so all those things kind of congealed together where you found an identity in a way that I hadn't been exposed to growing up in the Swedish system. And none of my family was like anti-Swedish or anything like that. It was just not
and I wouldn't say that you were really a leftist. You've always,
no.
I mean, and
we talked about communism and all that stuff.
I never went through a leftist period. I know you were just saying, what is it like? Some of us just pick up on this frequency of the left. And speaking of Portland State University, I just always felt that as soon as I went to college, I finished school early. I got my GED and I went to college right away. I went to Portland State University. I was a 4.0 student, by the way. And I remember being the youngest one in my class and stuff. And
major in physics and philosophy?
I have a minor in philosophy, and I was starting to major in physics. And I went through this whole metaphysical period, almost a little new agey.
Is that STEM? Is physics STEM? Is that a STEM?
Yes.
Totally wrong field for me, okay? Totally not what I was looking for. But I remember sitting, going to Portland State University, and this was, late 90s, some early 2000s, and just thinking, I don't like these people and I don't know why. There's an energy, they're emanating something. I don't like them and I know they don't like me. That was before
patchouli.
That was before you could put words on leftists and liberalism and the whole frequency and the whole vibe that goes with them that
That's
they
what I was getting
represent.
at.
You know what I mean? There really is that. And I always sensed that. And it never got a hold of me. And one of the reasons I think possibly is my dad. He was always more political, and he would talk to me about certain politics when I was a young teenager, and certain little things I think that he said kind of stuck with me, but he didn't follow it through. I wish he followed through even more, harder, but it was enough, I think, to get me to see some of those things and be turned off to it. But I definitely went through a big anarchist, libertarian, always a libertarian, you go through that.
Libertarian phase. Yeah, you got to do that.
Fiscally conservative, socially liberal. I'm sure a lot of you went through that period. You think, well, what's wrong? Just let people be and they'll let you be. Well, fast forward, here we are, very, very naive.
Work that way.
Yeah, it is interesting to ponder what that instinct is. I think a fair amount of the population just kind of has copier genes, and they're just going to go along with what's going on in the mainstream for survival reasons. But I think there are some people that have their core is tuned into something else. And you can even get into stuff about destiny. I don't know if we're going to have enough time to talk about that tonight, but I had the same thing where before I even had the language for it, I just knew something was off. And it's also interesting to think about the opportunity cost aspect. Again, that's what we spoke to Survive the Jive about, and I did a video about that too, because we have so many people who I think are like us to some degree, who might want to go into fields, creative fields, let's say, or journalism, and aren't aware of all this, and they think it's not for them, not because they don't have the raw talents, not because they don't have a sense for it, but because they sense unconsciously that they're going to be locked out of it. Because those people can kind of smell, they could tell us too. They could kind of smell it on us. There's something
they pick up on
us.
And
so you have all these people who could have gone and been journalists, artists, musicians, writers. There's a tremendous opportunity cost there. And I think there's a lot of our people, there's a lot of despair in our people because there's all this untapped talent and has nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. And that's why, Jason and I are doing what we're doing to help foster that kind of community. I could certainly relate to that, and maybe I would have been more lost if I didn't discover all of this, because
they should infiltrate some of those areas, go with your talents, be in there, but then also you can do things on the side to kind of get out some of that other outlet. I mean, most people, even leftists, most people are doing jobs that they don't love. Most people don't tap into their full potential. I think that's the story of most of humanity at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah. Infiltrating, sure. I don't know. The way I'm built, I need to build my own thing, and I know you guys are like that too.
And not everyone's like that, though. No, but not everyone.
The big distinction is that they work towards breaking things down, while we want to build things up, right? And so being in an environment just to infiltrate and to break things down is it's like destructive to your soul. In a way, I don't know how to explain it. I couldn't do it either. I'd probably go. There are some people that might do it and do that. That's great, but I could personally never do that. I'd be.
You can't just pay the bills, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Too hard.
Yeah, and the seed of, again, how you started with the more alt health and esoterica and spirituality, conspiracy theories. So it that search of truth led you to the more nationalist and heritage folk, anything, however you want to say it, that we're talking about now and why we're all together here now. But what do you think of that initial kernel of that search for truth and your interest in esoterica might still be in there or plays into what you're doing currently?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, growing up in the system in Sweden at the time is very, very materialistic, very nihilistic, very little spirituality. Of course, that reflects today why our country, Sweden, is in such a bad state, partially. But so it was, I mean, for lack of a better term, just for the sake of simplicity, it was just a core of rebellion. Like I hated that system. I hated the conformity within that, and I had to do something which was in rebellion and in opposition to that. And so a way for me to kind of like unlearn and disassociate and all that stuff was to just go in the most weird radical opposite direction that I could, and that
Aliens.
that was not to become a communist or anything like that, because that was already within the system, and I didn't like that anyway. I was fairly well read up on it even at that stage, but of like who pulled the strings and why they the social engineering aspects behind that. But yes, essentially it was like, let's look at the deeper questions, like why are we here? What is this about? What are we doing? Where's this going? And like, what about the bigger questions out there? Is there other life out there? Is there other, and people hold that, I see occasionally, it's not too much, but occasionally those things comes up as a kind of a delegitimization effort of what we're doing today, that because I talked about woo-woo off the wall topics, then I'm unfit for the job or something,
You're a seeker.
Precisely.
Of course, yeah. But it comes up occasionally, and that's fine. They can have their opinions. But the bottom line is like, if you're not going to be born something and be that. Like that's absurd and kind of irrelevant to bring it up. But like no, but you have to do your journey. You have to search. You have to honestly look at what's out there, and then you narrow things down, right? And you take okay, that's irrelevant. That's obviously BS. Okay, away with that. But at least I did. At least I combed through all the stuff.
At least you did, right? And you came to the biggest conspiracy of all, which is the one that we're all talking about.
Well, exactly. The big ethnic experiment and the replacement and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think it's a very good thing to go that path. And a lot of
regrets.
No, absolutely not. And there's things that are that you explored, that you can like say that, well, I've talked about that. I know some of that stuff, and it kind of makes you a little bit more, in some areas, a little bit more well-rounded.
I think some things that are still valid. I mean, Henrik, symbolism, mind control, how
absolutely social engineering.
You covered all that stuff, which is very relevant today. Yeah. I mean, you opened my eyes up to a lot of that kind of stuff, because I think a lot of women don't think subversively naturally on those levels anyway.
Yeah.
But it really opened up my eyes to be able to see a lot of the anti-white agenda. I remember coming back from Europe, coming back into America, when was that, like late 2012, 2013, and just like, what has happened? On one hand, I was happy to get out of Sweden at the time because it felt so oppressive and socialist and so totalitarian. You're not used to that as an American, there's a high-rise gulag apartments
there's
vibe.
Definitely a more healthy nationalistic movement today in Sweden too. A lot of more people that have woken up. I felt alone at the time when I was doing it. It was like no one on that path, So
So I remember on one hand feeling, it feels good to kind of get away from that, coming back to America, but then when you start paying attention to things, when your eyes are open and you look at advertisements, you look at news differently, you train your brain to look for some of those signals and what's really being projected at you. That's when we started noticing, oh my gosh, everything is anti-white. Like I remember noticing that around 2013. It was just so blatant.
Yeah. And then we'd seen, I remember it's like coming across that, as I said, I mean, if you know about like, the geopolitical disaster in the Middle East and what some of the incentives are for why America has such a crappy foreign policy and stuff like that, it's easy to kind of follow through and see some other aspects that part of that bigger agenda of undermining, American society, European society. So we've come across things here and there, but it just reached like a saturation point at some stage. From 2010 up to 2013, like, hey, the system is going crazy. Like it's out of control. We have to talk about this. We can't just like, it's not that we ignored it before, but it wasn't the primary focus.
It wasn't. Right? And then 2014 came, and I remember, Henrik, I did a show with Tim Murdoch called The War on Whites, right? And it was such a shitstorm. I remember with all the Red Ice fans and, oh my God, what is happening to Red Ice? And people thought I was a saboteur.
Before and after moment. There was a show like that I was going to ask that you could point to that was a before and after moment. Why don't we just, before you get to that, just 1 second, I'm curious privately, when you were still learning about these taboos, about the replacement and the war on whites, but you hadn't quite done it publicly yet. What was that like behind the scenes? How long did that take? Did you have discussions about, are we going to do this? Are we going to go public with this?
Tell all. It's time to reveal.
I don't remember discussing it. We just
see, this is the thing though, because I remember, Lana, I mean, I showed you some historical revisionism stuff. There were some other things.
Yeah, you hit that right away when I came up 2009. Way to test me out. Let's see if this woman is a keeper here. Here, watch this documentary.
What do you
well done.
Boom.
He really did do that.
And I talked her through the process.
It wasn't. Wasn't that hard though?
Very
Everyone was
romantic.
ready.
Very romantic. Yeah,
The greatest story never told is our rom-com.
It's true, Henrik. You knew about a lot of that stuff, and then you did a whole series on multiculturalism.
Well, let's see. This is the thing. See, what the difference is. I 2011 exactly. I did one called, I think, Zionism and Multiculturalism. It was a 4-part series that was about highlighting about the Barbara Specter stuff. So that means that was covered before. Like, what's the agenda with the open borders and stuff, right? We had covered that before. So it wasn't like that has never been touched. It was
that was
just
2011. You said.
Yeah, 2011. I think that was.
That's a few years prior. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
But none of those people were really overt. I'm a nationalist, really kind of speaking about what's going on, the war on Europeans and stuff. That kind of happened when we connected with the whole American branch first of nationalists and people like Jared Taylor and Kevin McDonald, Tim Murdoch. I think that's when that kind of really started blowing open.
Well, it was a natural trajectory in the sense that, you talk about those things and then you realize that, there's other suppressed speakers, like in America, as you said. Like I came across some videos with Kevin McDonald and stuff like that. And like, he's being vehemently attacked in the press and the media and stuff. Let's talk with him. Like, that's interesting. Like, see what his journey has been like. He's in academia. From there, I think we invited Jared Taylor at some point, and so it was. I still don't think that it was that like overnight kind of thing. It was something that we gradually mixed into kind of the fold. I think it was just because it was the title. Like, instead of just having multiculturalism in the title of the show, is the war on whites.
Which what was so interesting, though, is then you noticed how many lefties were interested in the truther scene back then, and people were like, "Oh my God, you racists!" And there were some people, finally, we wanted to know what you thought about race. Some non-whites that were listening, so they were all thinking about these things all the time, right? Yeah. But we weren't. We were totally unconscious of it. And then there was the other kind of red ice listener that was like, "Finally, I've been waiting for you guys, wondering when you were going to go there," right? So.
It's funny. I can tell you from my quick perspective as an audience member. So I was aware of you guys during the earlier days of the more esoterica. And I remember specifically, I'm a musician too. I was researching stuff about alternate tunings and frequencies. And you had an article posted on your site about solfeggio frequencies.
Yep.
All right. And I think I told you guys when I was able to come back for a Mark Collette show in February earlier this year, even though I haven't been on regularly, you guys happened to be on that week. I was around that Wednesday, and I told you this. I don't know if you remember, but same kind of trajectory, and it's such a full circle thing for me personally. That's why it means so much to be talking to you guys and working with you now. But I looked up this article about these frequencies and things like that. That was one of the main things I remember, but I was aware of you for other reasons and would check you out sometimes, cross-referenced different interests I had. And then I went on my own thing and arrived at the whole immigration invasion thing in 2015, especially, and then discovered you probably around that again, 2014, 2015, after not listening to you for a little while. And it took me a minute to be like, wait, were these the same people that a few years ago I was like the solfeggio frequencies, these alternate tuning systems and the metaphysics of that? And now I had discovered the whole Trojan horse that was the migrant crisis in 2015, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, you two are on the same page. And it's like I'd gone away for a little while, but the same exact journey in the same amount of time had happened for me personally as well. So thank you, and I'm curious to hear.
That's not strange.
Not at all.
I mean that I think if you do have. And I mean this in the most positive sense, an open mind, not so much that your brain falls out, but you're willing to look at things, right, and absorb new information and new details. Then you can't not see what's happening, right? So I think it's just a validation of the fact that it's like it's a recognition that it's the truth. It's where things are developing and going.
Well, it's an absolute testimony to the honesty of the investigator, because like you're saying, I mean, unless the person has like an 80 IQ, if they spend any time investigating what's going on in society at all, they're going to come to the anti-white reality. And then it's whether or not they have the courage and the honesty to be able to say to the world, this is exactly what's going on. For God's sakes, I was zoomed in, I was screwed in with the lens so tightly on everything going on in society that I didn't see anything until I backed the lens out a bit, and then I see that it's indeed everywhere. All these pieces fit nicely together. So it's a real testament not only to both of your intelligence, but also your courage and honesty
to
go forward, especially in an age that can tell the world that you all are evil for doing it.
Yeah,
so it's really something, and we salute you for that.
And that's something I can clarify that a little bit too. The process, what happened there, because I also wanted to do it in a way where we just didn't like jump over the threshold all of a sudden, or jumped into a different room, but intentionally try to open people's eyes to that and make them see. And I was just like, okay, I know you're programming, you're going to react negatively to this, you're going to be afraid of this and all that stuff, right? But like, please bear with us here. Like, look at this and be honest about it. And to some degree, that has proven that was a successful method, because we have gotten so much emails and so many messages from people who are like, hey, I used to listen to you back in the day, and
years
then
later,
I totally spurged out when you started talking about this stuff, and now like 2017 or 18 or even 19, they're like, you were totally right.
Look
like,
at Paul Craig Roberts.
I'm sorry.
What just happened with him, Henrik?
Paul Craig Roberts. That's right. Did you guys know who that is? Is an ex-Reagan?
Yeah, I know. What happened?
Well, I saw you tweet about this.
Yeah, I mean, as an example, right? I had him on the show.
He fought you on these things.
He's very good. The geopolitics, what's going on kind of behind the scenes, the political stuff, and mapping trends and stuff like that. And I kind of pulled him kicking and dragging into this issue of like what's happening in Sweden with migration. Why are they doing it? What's happening with Islamification? Like, this is not a good thing. And he was like, well, it's the West's fault. They're dropping bombs, kind of thing. And I was like, well, we're not doing it. We haven't voted for this. It's not our decision. Like, why are we being punished for it, kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And now the other day he just released he's full force, like, they're invaders. It's like, it's funny. It's like, it was just people come around to it because they see what the agenda is, and if they're honest and open about what's happening and don't have a subversive agenda, they will see it.
Kevin Barrett, an old one that you interviewed, I saw he just he called up the university that was complaining about that Islam is right about women and it's okay to be white. And there's a good phone conversation that he recorded there. He's also realizing all these things. There's been a lot of guests that you've had on in the past. He's a white Muslim, by the way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But understands a lot of the liberal hypocrisy and stuff. But there's been a lot of former guests who have come back and are coming around. They're coming around. Yeah, so this is where it's going.
They were dismissive first. They say, I'm going to set the, you're bad. What are you doing? Got messages and emails like that. And it's like, I just like, hey, like, we got to talk about this. Like, this is not good where this is going. You have to open your eyes and have to see what's going on. And
I would doubt you've gotten any emails in the reverse of someone that was with you in 2013, 2014 is now emailing you and saying, no, you're wrong. This is okay. And you guys shouldn't be talking about this. I would doubt that you have any like that.
I haven't seen many of those. No.
I haven't seen that either.
No.
When you released that War on Whites with Tim Murdoch, Lana, though, and you're explaining that there was stuff that led up to it. There were antecedents, but it was a bit of a watershed moment. How did things change for you guys personally and professionally? Were there attacks you had to deal with, or did you have to change strategies? Anything going on like that?
At the time, that was still, like we say, it was still the wild west of YouTube. You can post anything. Censorship wasn't happening then, so we didn't really have to think about it too much. It was amazing looking back. Like, you could say and do anything. So I didn't really care if people were calling me names or whatever, or calling us names, but I really didn't care. At that point, I was just like, okay, gung-ho, let's go. Let's bring on more guests like this, because I found it to be so important. Sorry, go on.
You were in Sweden at that time?
No, that was actually back in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so you had come back a little before that. And you mentioned this earlier, but we definitely want to hit on this. Lana, well, we're going to get both of your perspectives, but Lana first, since of course you are American. As you explained earlier, you had left America, lived in some other places. Bring us more a little into what it was like to come back and everything that you observed and learned from that.
Well, I remember one of the first thoughts was like, man, Americans are so fat. And they're just getting fatter. No, not all our listeners and supporters. Not people who care about white women.
I didn't say that at all.
But the general public leaves a little something to be desired. Yeah. Lana, I did hear, I don't want to get off track, but very briefly, I heard you speak, great interview. I don't know, what was it, a month ago, a little before the YouTube deletion, you speaking with a gentleman who moved to Russia and who lives in Moscow, and how it's not what people think. and he was talking about the level of decrepitude and all these like crazy people on public buses and stuff.
Unhinged. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know what he's talking about. There's something very dysgenic going on in the United States.
Oh, big time. When you're around in Europe, and my parents were in Serbia for a long time, they rented a place, hanging out. There's just a lot of clean-cut, good-looking people. Even if they don't have a lot of money, they don't look and sound and act trashy. They don't look like freakazoids. I mean, you can go into some of these little towns and big cities in America, and it's almost like there's two different species. There's like one splitting off, like this higher state human being and this weird freakazoid grunt creature. And I think America's been hit with GMOs, chemicals, bad food,
I was going to say it's being done
for
to
so long.
them. It's not something to do with their stock or
I feel sorry for
material.
some. I feel sorry for
some.
It's
engineering. Anyway, go on.
And then on top of all the mental programming and stuff. But yeah, I was really taken aback by that. Now I remember living in LA is different because everyone there is beautiful. They're models and actors and stuff. So like that's where all the good people are. But I remember thinking like,
or on the outside, maybe.
on the outside, yeah. I remember thinking, man, Europe just had so many better looking, healthier, sound looking people versus America. Like, what is going on here? It's going downhill. And it really felt like you could tell it's turning into a third world, not only because of immigration, but it's just crumbling and becoming more poor. A lot of people think, oh, America you can be rich, and there's all, they see TV shows and they see people living in these beautiful houses with these amazing yards. And that's just not the reality for most of the country. I remember feeling really depressed. Like, this is not the country that I remember. Like, I'm not even that old, and it's completely changing. And what is this going to be like for my kids? And I don't want them to grow up here. We need to get back to Europe.
It's happening here
home anymore.
Say that again.
Did it not feel like home anymore when you came back?
No, it didn't. I had a hard time finding a place that felt like home. Now, I grew up in Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon. I was born, but I grew up in Bend, Oregon, which is an upper middle class white resort town, And at the time, it was very conservative. But now I have friends talking about how left it's become, and it's just you find it happening everywhere. So it's hard to find a place that feels like home in America anymore. I know a lot of people are feeling that, like they want to find a pocket where at least they could be around other people like you guys, like us, so they can feel a sense of home and community somewhere,
Absolutely. Now, Henrik, different perspective. You're of course Swedish. Don't hold back. We won't be offended. What were your impressions coming to America?
Okay, let's see. What stood out most to me? I guess the materialistic aspect, I guess, a little bit, the
mall culture.
But that exists in Europe too, and it's also gotten worse there. But it was something with, I guess, there is something to be said about the access and the convenience of everything, and like the size of things it is like everything is bigger. You know what I mean? Including the people, but no. There's like all the shop, all the stuff you can like buy and stuff, and again, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's
pros and cons.
That's happening in Europe too. Most of the West is very similar in that way, but there was still a distinction, difference between Sweden, which is like things are smaller and tighter, and people have less. They take less space, kind of thing. But I also felt that was I realized that there's something to be said for the way that how do I put this? I used to live in a very small apartment, and many Swedes do too. They're live in small spaces, but it's interesting how the country. Well, actually, Sweden is one of the most in-debt countries now. It's crazy. There'll be crash coming there soon, but regardless, the country is and have traditionally been since the Second World War a wealthy country, but the individuals in the country don't have a lot of money. Right, so there's a difference there. They pay a lot in taxes and stuff like that. But there's something to be said as well, interestingly, with a confined space also creates a confined mind. I do feel that there's almost those the Million program in the 60s and 70s. The Swedish state built these massive apartment complexes building. They're ugly as hell. It's like a crime of architecture, and those I feel was done in social engineering purposes to like get people to be living in a depressing place and a state. Sweden's been very, very good at its social engineering, and so part of so part of going to America was like, it was one way liberating on the materialistic front, right? It was like, oh, the things are bigger, there's more room, there's more space, you can breathe, there's options, you can get things. That's nice.
Was nice.
But that also kind of that wanes after a certain point, right?
Well, what about well, you have a more independent entrepreneurial spirit. You started your own business with Red Ice. Do you feel like you see that more in America, or that's easier to do in America?
Yeah, it is. They definitely punish you, like in Sweden, if you want to do that kind of stuff. It's very restrictive. They tax the crap out of you. It's very
That's why people
difficult.
Leave to start businesses elsewhere.
This is the sad thing,
Unfortunately,
right? About how one way that our nation is being destroyed, because it's like all the entrepreneurial people, they can't deal with it. They just end up leaving, right? They go to the UK, or they go to the US, or they go to other country where it's
Baltic countries,
more free market oriented, and that's something, of course, we need to return. That's part of it. That's why I don't, the kind of socialism we've had in Sweden, it was like, yes, it is in a way, it used to be more nationalistic in the sense that it used to be about taking care of the people, but there's something very dark, or I don't know how to explain it, about that kind of that socialism that we've had there since the 60s and 70s.
And the government's in every single aspect. And I don't want that kind of future either. I like it nationalistic with free markets in a nationalistic sense, of course, but then also having a welfare system in case your people need help, and it shouldn't be $5,000 if your arm breaks or something. But I remember walking into some of the socialist hospitals thinking like, oh man, this just feels so depressing.
Yeah, it is
like depressing. I'm gonna get sick just being in here.
Yeah, it is very depressing. People forget that. It's the old Sweden is very different from the new Sweden. The new Sweden is it's from the 50s and 60s and onwards. Very bizarre, socially engineered country with conformity and weird things. If you go back further, it used to be much more warm and open, and people were kind, and the
nationalist version of socialism versus the communist version of socialism is two very different things.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
And isn't it weird that all of that seemed to just happen all around the West, all around the world, all around the same time?
Yeah.
Well, what a
coincidence.
Yeah, what a coincidence, and how convenient for the anti-whites. I'm going to read through some super chats really quickly for you wonderful people. We have Lady Mjolnir super chatting $25 on the familiar alternative, writing, thank you all for your outstanding work for White Wellbeing. Each and every one of you are the antidote to mainstream media malpractice. My husband and I are proud Red Ice members. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Super chat. Folks, I'm going to be reading through the super chats pretty quickly today, which is a little unusual because we don't have Henrik and Lana for the full time. Machiavellius sucks. $1.99 super chat. Thank you so much. And writing nothing but sing, Lana. And we have the great Pamela Cedar Creek super chatting $2.99 and writing, I love the way Jared wants to talk about the soul. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, it is important. Yeah.
Chancellor for super chatting £5. Lana, I'm at university now. It is so hard to be honest about one's views. When one is of pro-white persuasion. The only way, of course. Thank you very much for that, Chancellor. Yeah. Dave the Impaler, super chatting $5. Red Ice is an inspiration. All caps, they are indeed. As long as we don't give up, we will win in the end. Lana and Henrik, who are some of your favorite musicians? Well, we'll have that. Keep that question in your minds for the moment. Imminent Rain, the great, talking about musicians, a fantastic rising star. And we have a number of the rising stars in the chat right now. Imminent Rain being one of the premier stars, $9.99, writing Promethean hails to Red Ice, No White Guilt, and Jared George. Great to see so many of our heroes on the show and in the chat. Very well said. Erie 32 super chatting €10. Keep up the hard work. Future is ours. Have any of you heard of the National Party in Ireland, a real nationalist party? I'm a member. You should check them out and show Irish nationalists to the world. Thank you very much for the
We want to have one on the show soon. Yes, we're going to be looking more into what's going on in Ireland.
Indeed, Jared. And that's from Erie. Thank you so much. Ryan Manley, the great Ryan Manley, $2.99. Never fall for the left, right, and I'm guessing the paradigm. We also have, but asking a participant in the community without a super chat, Beer Hall Push asking if we could mention to Henrik, and keep this in your mind, Henrik, if you will ever be returning to any of the esoteric content. Looks like we have Kraut with €20. The four of you make good riders of the apocalypse, like the literal meaning of apocalypse. as in unveiling. Well, thank you so much for that as well. And then
I do ride horses.
There we go. On entropy,
used to be pretty good.
we have the great Roy Danton just showed up right as I turned to entropy, super chatting $25. Thank you very much, my dear friend, and writing, just saying hi really quick. Thank you so much, Roy. And we have Tall Kevin over here, a great participant in the community, $3 super chat over on entropy. Lana, as a U.S. citizen, are you afraid of being banned from EU like Jared Taylor, or does being married to Henrik prevent such a thing from happening? Those are the super chats so far. Thank you all. And any of those questions you both remember, please feel free to
favorite musicians first. Favorite musicians was first.
I don't have a favorite anymore. I listen to a lot of instrumental stuff, different soundtracks, just various independent makers who don't really label their stuff. So I don't know. What about you, Henrik? It's hard for me because all the lyrics is just garbage.
Yeah, even if you come across music that is really good, sometimes the lyrics ruins it for me when I realize what they're singing about. Yeah, most of the time. But I do like Vardruna, good band.
Yeah, they're good. That's right.
There are some kind of, I do like some of the old Norse style, and I know some of it is obviously not like historically correct and all that, but I don't care. If it's inspirational. I've actually gone back. I'm listening to Tyr, the Faroe Island band is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to some Ammon Amaranth. Some of that kind of style I've appreciated more and more. I didn't used to. I thought it was cheesy and stuff, but that's
Metal?
something I've become to appreciate more and more. They have some historic, even Sabaton, I think Sabaton, whatever you call that in Sweden. They have done some good covers. They're a Swedish band. What else? God. Yeah,
we need to make our own music and create our own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what we used to be, and we don't have much.
And
time
Europeans,
for it
when it comes to music, we're the most diverse. I mean, hard rock, classical, electronica, folk. I mean, you name it, like country, and I can swing with a lot of different genres. I like a lot of different genres, except hip hop and R&B and all that garbage. But classical, hard rock, metal, electronica. I mean, I like all that.
Yeah,
cool. Well, we also had the esoteric question, and then the safety of not being banned.
The esoteric question. Yeah, in a way. I've also gone kind of through a little bit of a personality forced to, because I never, frankly, was never comfortable being in the limelight or anything like that. So I've had to kind of transform that aspect a little bit. All right, now it's happening now. Like you're doing videos and hosting shows and stuff. So that has changed. And with that, a little bit, you develop more from introvert to extrovert. And there is something to be said about, if you have a more introvert personality, you're more prone to look at esoteric,
inward.
It's an inner reflection more than just, external and outer world. And that's very important. And I think you should, at some point in your life, if you have time for it, kind of go through that stage, if you will, and examine those things and look at it. We forget the spiritual aspect sometimes, and partially that's part of why we're in the problem we're in. Frankly, I think there's something to be said about that. Mm-hmm. But right now, it's like it's not something I don't. There's some people that see that the remedy is only in that. Like if we can change our spiritual mind or everything will change and
it's a multi-dimensional war.
Yeah,
really.
It's happening on so many different fronts, and I just personally felt like I can't just sit here and navel gaze on certain little minutia. Like I have to, I have to, we have to look at the bigger. And it's not to put it down, but it's just to say there are real world, real life, political things that has to be changed. And maybe if we get to a point where that's stabilized, where it's not so extreme,
then we could focus on all those woo-woo things again. Yeah,
there's deeper questions, and of course I still like that. There's a lot of interesting things there. There's a lot of nutty stuff too. So you gotta wade through that and find the nuggets of gold in there.
I think there's a space there to explore about weaving more between the two. Because I find myself going and reading esoteric stuff and then looking political, and I'm trying to weave the two a little more together so that you talk about politics and you can kind of drop in things about spirituality, and it's not hitting people over the head that might not love and always want to read about the spirituality, but you kind of give these little breadcrumbs, and it's not commentary either. I think there's a lot of potential there for us to kind of interlock those two more.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then someone asked about Lana and the EU.
Well, I haven't heard of anyone banning someone's wife yet, but I guess We'll find out, huh? If so, I mean, if that ever happened, we would get a lawyer and fight it and be very loud about it, of course. I mean, that would be outrageous if they everyone can come in except for your wife.
We'll find another way of making sure that you don't enter into the country on those premises. So we have a bypass on that, a solution.
I can always wear my Halloween costume.
Yeah, Jason and I were thinking about maybe attending some conferences and meetings, but going on one of the boats up from North Africa. Maybe we get a house.
Yeah,
exactly. Get a tan. Yeah.
Get some property in the old continent. That might be nice. Now, on the spot question. If you don't have anything for this, we can definitely move on. We have a little bit more if you have time. But given that we're talking about your whole story and your trajectory, how you started esoteric and ended up where you are now, did both of you have any coincidences or little taps on the shoulder along the way that kind of told you you're on the right path, that there's something bigger going on here?
I had some weird little premonitions. I used to meditate a lot, and I have a little bit of a psychic gift and things. And I remember having some dreams or different epiphanies where I had seen myself in the future, and it's in some settings like this. Even Henrik, when I met him, it was total deja vu. I even had psychics from psychics, and even growing up in a Christian church, I remember someone who claimed to be a prophet came, was prophesizing over people and gave me this one prophecy. Well, that's actually come true. There's several things that came true there. So I just felt like all of that was syncing up. And then, of course, meeting Henrik and the talents that I brought, I mean, we sync up pretty well as far as what we can do together, So I had premonitions. What about you, Henrik?
Yeah, about the work overall that we're doing now, or
Yeah, I mean, everything about Red Ice, that just along the way you had coincidences, premonitions, like Lana said, or however you understand that you were being told that you're on the right path, and there's a sense of destiny, you could say, to this.
I think it, for the sake of, there's so many things that I have struggled with personally to try to make it in different fields and doing different things, and this was. And that's not to say just because you take the path of least resistance that's what the best path or whatever, but there is something to be said for things lining up right just at the right moment, and there's a flow in certain ways, and it's like, hey, look, this is working, or like this is growing, it's people want this or whatever, and I'm in this position. Yeah, I'd say that it's like it was meant to be, because that has been one of the more easy, not the work in itself, but the way to reach people and get the word out and make Red Eyes grow and stuff. That has been very easy compared to other endeavors that I've been involved in. So there's something to be said for that, I think, where it seems some things have just, pieces have fallen together in a way that is like, well, that was obviously meant to happen and pan out in that kind of way. So yeah, I'd say yes, obviously, otherwise we probably wouldn't be in this position where we're in now. So yeah.
And you got lucky too, because I just called you up, I just wrote you. You didn't have to do anything. That's why I tell these guys who are like, I can't find a woman. I'm like, well, if like you two guys, I mean, the perfect woman's could be watching right now because you're putting yourself out there. She might contact you. It happened for
I very much believe, especially for men, you have to project what you are in the world and stand on your own 2 feet and what you are. Be grounded in that, and that will be the lightning rod that attracts the woman and everything else, all the things that are meant to be in your story. And some of those things will be challenging, hard work, like you said, Henrik, but there is that different sense of you're getting traction. I know what you're talking about, and I've heard from others say the same thing. Now, with respect to hypothetical questions being very limited, because just having spoken about destiny, I do believe that you're born in the place and the time and the web of all the circumstances for a reason. But putting all that aside a little bit, knowing that hypotheticals aren't perfect, just as a fun question, each of you, what do you think you would be doing if there wasn't this crisis in the Western world going on right now? Well, I guess, Lana, we can start with you.
I think I would have pursued more of the career in the film and music industry, behind the scenes and working in that scene, because I was very good at producing things. I had a knack for producing. So maybe producing films or something, I probably would have worked my way up there. Still had a family, but yeah, because if there wasn't a crisis, would I have woken up to a lot of these things? I'm not sure that I would have. So maybe I would have just stayed the course there.
Well, then it wouldn't have been a need for you to wake up to that.
Yeah,
because it wouldn't be a
true.
reality, right?
So then you just do something selfish like, oh, okay, well, this is fun and I'm making money, right? Whereas now it's about so much more.
Yeah, it's a calling.
So, Henrik?
Yeah, I mean, I was formally, I just skipped, what do you call it, jump. I didn't finish the education, but I was formally trained in media for about 2 years. It was a 3-year program. This is what's I always forget what the equivalent is, but with the college and high school and university and all that stuff. This would be
like a college degree type of thing.
Was it college? Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah. Anyway, educated for 2 years in like photography, videography, graphics, design, computers, editing, and all that kind of stuff. And ironically, I think I'm one, together with one, possibly two more that I've heard from that class that I went that actually do work in some kind of media job.
It's always that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The rest never. But ironically, I ended up quitting, but still doing probably more in media than any of all those other people.
So it is.
So I would probably have done. I mean, either I would have been playing music, or I would have been doing something with graphics or movie or media, something like that. I think I would have been doing. Frankly, it seemed to turn in that direction. But we were very, very serious about music, and just rehearsing like crazy, and we're a decent band back in the day. So it's like something might have come out of that, but it's so hard.
People don't know this either, but Henrik was really good at hockey too. He could have gone on to be professional.
It was definitely would have been.
So wait, you could have played professionally or semi-professionally?
Well, I if I would have stuck to it, I think I would have. Yeah, there was a couple of things that happened internally with the team and stuff like that, and why I kind of lost interest, which was a shame. But if I would have moved to a different team that had a little bit of different drive, I guess you could say, then I would definitely have, I think, gotten something out of that situation.
Wow, well, that's something we kind of have in common. I turned down minor league baseball to play college football.
There you go. Yeah,
I could have gone on to minor league baseball, and who knows if I would have stayed there, if I would have made it to the big league. But
I could see that. I can see it.
If you guys have a little bit more time, I know something a lot of people would be very curious to hear. And that is, of course, you are a couple, and anything that you can impart on the audience about your partnership as a couple, as a romantic couple, any advice for new couples, let's say, so people who are together, but new young couples, and also people who are still looking.
Well, I'd say I have always a lot to say about this. Probably women always have more to say about this than guys, but I think that it should feel right from day one. Like I said, I met, different guys growing up and guys who wanted to get married, and it just never felt right. It's supposed to feel right. You're not supposed to have a doubt about it. If you have a doubt about it, you need to listen to that voice. I think you also need to be alike politically and spiritually, because you don't want to marry someone who's a leftist or not on the same page as you spiritually. That's just not going to work. I think that the strongest relationships are people who can talk about everything. They have to communicate. You can't let things fester. I also think that people need to remember that in a marriage, you're going to be tested. So some of your weak spots are going to come out when you're with someone 24/7. They're going to see the best in you and they're going to see the worst in you. But one of the best things about a relationship is that you change drastically. I mean, Henrik, you and I have changed a lot being together over the last 10 years. So you bring new things out of each other. You learn what your weak spots are right away. You have to work on those.
I don't want to mean to cut you off,
no,
but it's also a little bit to do with the personality traits, because there are some, and that's not, again, it's not to put down or anything, but there are some that are just more, they don't have that core of like truth searching and seeking and like a drive to change. They're kind of more just, they're more simple, right? And that's fine. We need those people. There's nothing wrong with that. But some are just more, they're more laid back, and they might not go through those radical like transformations where they like they question things about their the world, and they change their personality, or they evolve very, very much in a kind of way which some people just don't go through that. And I think that they won't have as much kind of up and down that roller coaster that some people.
The drastic stuff. Well, and I do think though, A lot of people, they won't have that, but even normie tier people they have weak spots and they have strengths, and you learn about those basic things, even without the philosophical things on top of it,
Sure.
But I think as a woman, I didn't feel quite complete. I didn't feel whole without having the right man. And I always kind of laughed at that. Oh, you complete me, whatever, but it's true. A man does make up the difference. Just like for a man, the woman can make the man. So it's very important to be with the right woman who helps build you up and is supportive in the right ways instead of pulling you down. And same with a woman. You have to find the right kind of guy who protects you in all the right ways and comforts and helps nurture you to be a better woman. Also, you need to know that there's ups and downs in life, and that's part of having a relationship. It's not always going to be a romantic comedy, and that's okay. I mean, you even have problems with your family. You can love your family like crazy, but there's going to be little things along the way. But you're going to have easy and hard periods. You're going to have very passionate periods and periods that aren't as passionate, and that's okay. That's just what it is. It can't always be a romantic period, but exactly, Henrik, you shouldn't have the drastic ups and downs. Like, we don't have drastic ups and downs, like bipolar relationships. Some people actually have those. And I remember meeting some girls in the past where they liked that because it actually turned them on. They even thought that the sex was better when they were making up and stuff. So it's like some people, they're in these volatile relationships,
That's a psychological thing. Yeah, they have stuff not worked out. If you need to be arguing.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, and it's also something to add to that, which I've been thinking about, and there's more of thinking. I mean, I personally am in a lucky situation, having met Lana, and everything worked out in that such a great way, for us, and it worked and it clicked. So this has never been an issue for me, but when I think about it, like rationally, I also know that it's very easy for people of European descent to be very picky, maybe on this front.
Too picky.
And I'm thinking sometimes if that's too. Yeah. I mean, obviously you want to meet someone that you absolutely love and you want to spend the rest of your life with them, but just looking at it, kind of a cold reading of what we've gone through historically. I mean, the majority of our society it was like arranged marriages, essentially, right? It was like, you keep society, civilization, your nation, your tribe moving forward regardless. You don't sit on your hands and wait until the perfect person shows up, although that's wonderful and that's great when that happens. And those people are lucky. But I'm just questioning as well that, these young women sit and look at these romantic comedies and they have this conceptualized foreign idea of what it's supposed to be. And they, you don't get any families or children out of that situation because they just wait and wait and wait and wait, right?
Prince
you see what I'm saying?
Right?
That sometimes, there's a balance between those things. I think when I think about it rationally, that like sometimes you can just, I think if people were this, I guess is my point of this. If people were a little bit more well put together, it wouldn't be such a radical thing to be in a relationship with someone that you kind of learn to grow with and develop with. It feels there's so many issues and psychological traits, kind of what you were alluding to, Jason, there as well, that there's so many psychological traps and people have so many issues and stuff today, which I don't think used to be the case back in the day. Right. You know what I mean? It was easier to meet people that were level-headed, that were generally on your same page, you were more or less of the same people or tribe or something like that, right? But now that's been so thrown off in our globalized world with so much issues.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
And you can also meet, from a woman's point of view, meet a man who's made of the right stuff. Like my dad, for instance, he was poor when my parents got together, but he was made of the right stuff and he managed to work his way and made a living, and my mom was with him. I think the couples that are bound together, even when they're not very successful and they find success together and they work on that together, they're much tighter than versus a woman who just meets a guy who's already rich or something and then just kind of jumps into that relationship. I think the best relationships have gone through a lot of the transformation together and the hard work together and really creating what they want and need.
Same with my parents. My dad eventually got my mom a little diamond, but they were late teens, and he literally proposed to her with a ring he had made where the diamond would be was like a little part of a screw. And my mom was, I don't want to speak out of turn, but she did a little like test modeling. She wasn't a dog, she could have gone with guys that had a lot more money, But she wore it, and she wore it proudly because she was in love with my dad. And like you said, he was made of the right stuff. And I don't think people are encouraged to think that way anymore. So Lana, as a woman, I'm glad, and I think Jason would agree because he's spoken about this. I'm very glad that you said that.
Yeah. And then also men need to know women definitely change once they get married. They do settle down more once they have a child. They change.
That's my point. That's what I want to mention. Glad you mentioned that. Usually, I mean, it is women are not as politically involved. We know that. And it's up to the man to like pull them through the proper channels to get them to realize where things need to go and what positions they need to have. And that used to be the case traditionally. Obviously, there used to be a household vote and they were on the same page, not because the woman was hysterically driven in her political opinions, because she was not. And the man usually made the decisions.
And it was about having unity in the house. I mean, I always say, why would you want to have two different votes for the same house? It should be one vote for house. You should be unified in your political viewpopoints.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know we've already run over, but I got a couple super chats here. I want to read to you all.
Yeah.
Keep any of these, as I go through, keep any of these questions in mind that you want to answer. Of course, you don't have to answer them all. And then we will find out from you all your current projects, new projects, where people can find you. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been an absolutely amazing time that we've been able to spend with Henrik and Lana. These are two of the most beautiful people there are, not just in the white positive sphere, but there are, period. And we've been able to, in this brief amount of time, we've tapped into a deeper side and found out that there's a lot more love in these people than anybody could have even imagined up to this point. The anti-whites have done everything they can to flatten these folks out into these two-dimensional, dehumanize them, evil characters. You saw here today, that in fact, these are three-dimensional, humanized, loving, caring people with emotions and thoughts and histories and desires and hurts. And they have a small family. They are trying to get by. This giant anti-white superstructure is out there trying to pull them down. Make sure you support these folks in everything they are doing in every way you can. So let me get to these super chats really quickly. Dave the Impaler back again, $5, writing, many anti-white traders do know, but choose cheap degeneracy over reality. By the way, Google Pay is still holding back my payments, super chats on Entropy. Sorry about that, Dave. We'll look into it. Woodnats, super chatting 10 pounds on the subject of Irish nationalism. Please take a look at Keith Wood's channel, Henrik and Lana. I would love to see him on Red Ice. The name there.
I've heard about him. Yeah. We'll look into it. Thanks.
Chad Martin, $1.99. Thank you so very much. Your article on Ummus is amazing. Henrik and Lana. Thank you so much for that. Dave the Impaler back again, $5. Lana and Henrik, have you thought about producing small budget, independent, pro-white nationalist films? There's definitely a demand for pro-white art. Keep that in mind, my dear friends. Moondog76, super chatting $9.99. Much respect to all the hosts and panelists. You all are making our ancestors proud. Thank you very much for that, Moondog. We have Jason over here on the Familiar Alternative. The Danish Greek super chatting $26.66. Question for all, especially Jared and Henrik. What are your thoughts on the energy of the runic 13 moon calendars? Jason also has a question about some bands whose names I can't pronounce, and I will pass that verbiage along to both of them after the show is over. Scully super chatting $10 as well on the Familiar Alternative. Thank you very much. Thank you to you as well, Jason. Scully writing, I'm enjoying the show as always. Thank you all. Well, thank you very much, Scully. Over here on Entropy, we have Canadian Longboarder super chatting $3 and writing, what are your thoughts on the FairTube campaign against YouTube? Keep that in mind if you'd like to answer that. Thank you very much, Canadian Longboarder. And we have the great Marcus Cicero over here on Entropy, $25. And thank you so much for the super chat and writing, just made it to the stream. Thanks, No White Guilt. I totally love Red Ice. I became a member several months ago with my first intro to white positivity. Thank you very much for that, Marcus. And we have a couple of questions in the question widget that have been voted up. First is a statement by Yonash writing, I found Red Ice when I searched for Red Ice drug from Detroit.
Nice.
What a luck. And he's got his
yeah.
And finally, we have Red Pill Bulgaria, a great participant in the community for white well-being, writing, it's infuriating how the globalist establishment demonizes Henrik and Lana I just want to tell them that they are the voice of millions of whites, and they have our unconditional love and support. Amen to that. They absolutely do. Henrik and Lana, answers to any of these questions, your final thoughts, things you're working on, and then we will let you all get back to your wonderful little family and the hard work you are doing for our people in service to white well-being.
First was films.
Yeah, short films.
Definitely.
The answer is yes, absolutely. We do have, actually, and it kind of relates to some of the things we're entering into now with continuing spreading the word outside of YouTube, because we can't be on there any longer. We're going to make shorter pieces kind of aimed at Twitter, really, and see where
just
that
recorded
goes.
one today.
Very short, very compact, very, very concise.
Working
and then
on
maybe
a series,
have a link to, like, check out more here or whatever. But just see what we can achieve on Twitter, just in very, very much shorter format. That's going to be interesting to see, and maybe we can get some good exposure through that. Who knows? We'll see. We'll do the best we can there. But yeah, short films would be great. It's just it's much more time consuming, obviously, to do a dramatical kind of movie or film in that way.
Right, we
thought
definitely want
about
to do
it.
that.
We've thought about it for a few years. It's just been wall to wall and busy. But
and it's also
I'd
good
love to do
because
it,
we're meeting more people in the scene that have those talents, and people in LA that are under the radar. So we're kind of building that network. And so it would be great if someone comes around that wants to help invest in something like that we can do. And it doesn't have to be overt political. It shouldn't be that way. It needs to be much cooler than that. There's something that can appeal to a lot of different people.
So I heard someone mention FairTube as well. I just Googled it and looked at it. I guess, is it one of the German guys, Jörg Sparv, who's spearheading that?
I'm not familiar.
No, I'm not. I've never
He's
heard
kind of
that.
a big YouTuber. I searched for it, and one of his videos came up first. So I'm not too sure, but anything we could do with YouTube, I just think that they need to be sued, to be honest, and put back in their place. Either let them go in terms of like being we talked about this the other day, of course, on the other show we did with Mark Collette, but either they have to become a publisher and be recognized as such and don't get all the perks from the government and protection, or go the other way. Like, pick one or the other. That's what I think. But I'll look into FairTube. I haven't heard too much about it. I'll look further into it.
Yeah, we're still challenging. We're going to still challenge our deletion, by the way. Working on that.
Oh, good.
As far as the terms and the violation and stuff. And I'm talking to an attorney. So
get a little bit more information out and get YouTube to respond and give us data about what how the reasoning was on the back.
And then also start up another channel that's just a personal, like I'm going to start my own personal one and do a couple vlogs. And then if they delete that, then I know it's a personal attack. It's not just about Red Ice and the Red Ice channel.
Right. 13 moon runic calendar.
Not too familiar with it. There's a lot of things that I have left still to do on that front. I did some shows, on runic kind of influence, I guess you could say, or whatever you want to term that, power. But there's still a lot of work that I have to comb through and haven't really had the time. I've been attracted to it primarily because it's obviously the script of my ancestors, and this is how they used to write. Now I know that there's a whole purported esoteric, almost magical component to it, but I'm not too well versed in that, and there's a lot of more exploration I have to do there. There's some good works out there on the topic, some that I've even purchased and not have time to read yet. So I have a lot more to go through there. So I wouldn't be able to make really an intelligent answer to that specific thing.
Colin Cleary's essays on the runes I always recommend. I would say factors of 3 are big for our ancestors, so I'm more attracted to the 12. I will look into the 13 moon runic calendar, but I will also just say briefly, not my Red Ice video that's about to come out, but the one after that. It deals with something with the runes in part of it, and there's an interesting coincidence having to do with something a little bit different. There's half months associated with each of the 24 runes in the Elder Futhark, and look out for that. Not my next Red Ice video, but the one after that. Look out for something about that to the person that asked that question. But Henrik and Lana,
quick, like I said, that's on that too. I just realized because, I've been very interested in origin points and time measurements of our old people, the Norse people, pre-Viking and Viking age as well. And obviously, I've come across this. A great documentary I watched by the Western Gothic School. They were kind of mapping what's the origin point. Where were the last temple that was burnt down in about 1080? Where was that located? I've been very interested in those kinds of questions, try to find things archaeologically where I used to be and stuff like that. But I did come across that they had a time measurement probably rooted in the 13th. They measured 13 moons instead of just 12. right? And you can divide it up by 28 instead. And that actually maps out perfectly with their time measurements, why they celebrated Christmas on, or you, let's just say, obviously, around the, from starting from the 13th of December going up to the, was it the 27th or something like that, right? There is a logic to that reasoning. And it's very interesting, by the way. So, yeah.
Your work coming up and what you're working on, where folks can find you. And then I have just a couple super chats to read once you finish to send you off to the rest of your lovely day.
Yeah. So as I said, working on shorter videos for Twitter, kind of streamline it there a little bit and see what happens so we can get something out of that. A lot of ideas. We have tons of things we want to do. So many things upcoming, more just very succinct messages of really trying to boil it down and make it more easily, palatable and accessible and stuff like that. So we'll see what can come out of that. Hopefully there's can be some more exposure out of that, because of course, as we know, they try to shut our ability down to reach more people. People, they are stuck on YouTube. It's just the reality for now, but it's not going to last in the long run. YouTube is shooting itself in the foot. They're going through this demonetization thing right now. They're going through the terms of service updates. It's just going to get worse and worse. So in the meantime, check us out on BitTube. BitChute. So BitTube is another thing I was looking at the other day. BitChute.com/RedIceTV. Library is the thing I just looked into yesterday. Someone recommended it. Seems pretty interesting. Again, these are smaller platforms, so you don't have as many people there, but Library, setting up a channel there, setting up a VK one as well. Otherwise, just follow us on DLive, dlive.tv/RedIceTV. We stream stuff there. Our website is the primary place, of course, redice.tv. Just go there, bookmark that. You can watch everything there. Or get a membership, redicemembers.com. That's the best way to support us as well.
Yes.
That's what I'd say.
And anything coming up with Lana's Llama, your organic clothing line?
Yeah, I need to do more clothes. It's been hard because all these other things have been happening, but I've sold out of, all the just clothes beyond their Red Ice merch. So I need to get back into action on that. I have patterns and things, samples done, ready to go. I just need to send some stuff off to the factory. I'm even doing, wait for it, organic underwear.
Oh, well, we mentioned that briefly on your Halloween stream, and that is important. Those are some of those important parts of the body, and you don't want any chemicals and synthetic materials.
The family jewels, you have to,
important parts. Yeah. Well, those are linked to on our links to peers page on the TAP TV site. And speaking of the TAP TV site, please go to the Watch Live Now page where you can watch this show embedded on Entropy. Let us know feedback because we're still working out kinks. But speaking of getting away from YouTube, that's why we built our own site, theafterparty.tv, so that you guys can be interacting with us on our own platform. But Jason, what did you have for us?
Well, the final thing I'm going to do is say that thank you so much to both of you for coming on today, being with us. It's been a remarkable conversation. We've had a very quick one. It has been actually stellar. It's kind of a watershed moment, I think. I mean, we're really digging into who Henrik and Lana are and finding that the deeper we dig, the more beautiful the diamonds that we find. Beautiful people. This is why I call them the king and queen of the white positive sphere. God bless them. And I will send you off with these two final super chats.
You're always so kind, you guys. We love you guys.
Yeah.
Love your streams. You're the best. You're talented. You're smart. You're funny. You've got it all going on.
Thank
And I know
you.
a lot of people support you. A lot of people enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, guys.
we do too.
Thank you to both of you.
Let me read this to you, and then we'll say goodbye. We have Truth Be Told super chatting $20, writing, marriage is a blessing. It brings forth families. God bless you all. Gabriella, not super chatting, but writing that she hopes that you all expand your family. And Jim B, super chatting $20. Thank you so very much. And writing here, yes, you are very lucky, Henrik. Lana is gorgeous and intelligent and has a great sense of humor, but she's very lucky too. You're an awesome guy, solid, sensible, and well-rounded. Thank you, Jim. Thank you both for coming on. It's been a splendid time, and we will lovingly have you back whenever you can come.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you, guys. Thank you so much again. Very good conversation. We'll talk to you guys soon, okay?
Hey, do, do svidanya. Goodbye.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Bye.
So, Jared, we are going to stay, ladies and gentlemen. Jared and I are still here, but we're not going to be staying on YouTube for the stream for very much longer. We're going to be switching out of YouTube. We do have a couple more super chats that just came in. I will be sure to.
I'm wondering if we should do quicker taps sometimes. I felt like I had to just rattle off questions, but it still didn't feel too rushed. Maybe we should put that up as an entropy question. Should we do hour to hour and a half taps sometimes?
Yeah, not a bad question. see what do you all think?
It felt like we kept things at a good clip, a good pace. But yes, Jason, I didn't know, we didn't talk too much about this. I didn't know if you were going to do this on this show, but are we going to go over a little bit to D Live tonight? Is that what you wanted to do?
I think so. We have.
So all of you have to make sure you have a D Live.
We'll give everybody time. Well, now we're going to be on several platforms, everybody. We're going to be continuing the show. As you know, TAP is normally a 2-hour show. It might not be 2 hours today, but it will be somewhere between now and 2 hours.
Well, we have to give them a reason to go to D Live. We have to do a little more programming if they're going to hop over to D Live. But guys, this is the thing, whether it's D Live or some other platforms, keep a file, keep your password and login information. With what's going on with YouTube, you're going to have a few different places. Even though you can watch our show on our site, theafterparty.tv, you still have to be logged into Entropy via one of these streaming platforms. So D Live, they're working on. There's some others already that aren't YouTube that you can already use with Entropy. We're going to experiment with as well. But we do ask that you stick with us and you're patient and you're a little flexible because we'll be talking more about this in the coming weeks. Still planning, still learning things. We just launched the new website and already there's more to think about. But no matter what happens on December 10th, we have to think as if YouTube is going to go away. I think we all have to. And if we wake up on December 11th and it's still there, then great. But Jason and I are making some plans and we're going to be sharing with you over the next couple of weeks some more things we could be doing where if worst case scenario, all of our channels are gone on December 10th on YouTube, we could still continue doing what we're doing here. So just hang with us.
Indeed. So you have some options, ladies and gentlemen, as we close the stream off on YouTube today. You can be on Twitch, you could be on VK, you could be on D Live, on Facebook, or on Periscope to continue watching the show today.
And by the way, all of those links, and I'll put this in the D Live chat and the YouTube chat, all those platforms Jason just mentioned are linked to on the Watch Live Now page on the afterparty.tv site. So not only is the Entropy stream embedded there, and I'm putting that in the chat right now, but if you don't know where all of these are, those links are right there above the window where you would watch the Entropy stream. They're all linked to right there on that Watch Live Now page.
Yeah, indeed. We have a couple super chats here on YouTube that we will read before we sign off here. Steven super chatting $1.99. Hello, brother. Writing U.S. wealthy elite, any color more, a united culture. I'm not sure what exactly. You don't have to super chat again, but if you could give a little bit more information, you could tag me quickly and in the live chat and help me understand what you're trying to say there. Robert Brown, super chatting $9.99. No verbiage, but saying a lot with those digits to the anti-white. So thank you so very much. A big thank you to all of you who super chatted and who asked questions while we had Henrik and Lana. Of course, we had to read through those quickly. That's not what we normally do, but we had to let those good people get back to their hard work that they are doing for our people and White Wellbeing. Little Rorik, all that they have there. So let's see here. So once again, folks, you can continue to watch by way of Twitch, VK, D Live, Facebook, or Periscope. The links are where Jared mentioned, and you can also find them in the body of the description on both No White Guilt channel and on Gardening with NWG channel. You will find them in both places. So if we are ready, then let me make sure we have everything over here. You can continue, of course, to watch by way, I think, if this works properly, to watch by way of Entropy. We'll see. In fact, we will go for that first, and we will make sure that it works. This is a bit of a, you all are helping us with the test that is taking place.
So even though Entropy is hooked up with YouTube, how does it stay on?
Well, we're going to try a little experiment.
Oh, okay. See, I'm thinking, Jason, what's the hook? What is the reward for people following us over to D Live? Will it be an AMA? We'll answer certain questions. Anyone watching now, what are they going to get if they follow us over to DLive? We have to think of that.
Well,
we'll answer more questions. We'll play strip poker, something.
It can be, yes, you all can, it can be an AMA, which means you can ask anything and we will answer the ones we feel like answering. But we also can talk about what's going on, generally speaking, with the censorship and where you can expect to find us, and otherwise kind of a laid back little while to see what you all are interested in talking about, speak directly to you all who remain in the chat with us on these other platforms. If you are able to see me and hear me still on Gardening with NWG on YouTube, actually on YouTube, then speak now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, we are going to be shutting the stream down here to No White Guilt. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fantastic time. And we, as always, look forward to seeing you next time.